You're viewing Wisdom Keys for focusing on your passion. LaunchPad Consultancy, in collaboration with VisionWorks Solutions, bring to you Book Club Conversations Series 3. And in this series, entrepreneurs and professionals are reading the book, The Uncommon Dream, 31 Wisdom Keys for Focusing on the Passion of Your Heart, written by author Mike Murdoch. I'm your host, Alina Lewis, and today's discussion is centered around chapter 28, entitled The Uncommon Dream Will Require Mind Management. And joining me this evening is none other than Impact Strategist from VisionWorks, none other than Roll Rollock. So let's bring him in studio. Hi, Roll. How are you?
Hello, good night. I'm good, good night.
Awesome
Ready to
to have
rumble?
you as always. So we're jumping into
Yeah,
mind
pleasure to be
management.
here.
Yeah. And even as we jump off roll into mind management, one of the first green flags that set off in my mind is where Mike Murdoch said, happiness begins in your mind. And I want to know, Roll, when you read that line, what came to your mind?
Oh boy. Hey, that it actually took me back to a session I did recently. I think on your program you had Simone Nickham, and she had this session she's doing on create your narrative. And she had me do a piece on bending reality. So the question that we
Right.
raised in the session is, what is reality? Where does reality exist? And reality is really in your mind, you know? As much as we think reality is outside of us, right?
Yeah.
A lot of it is how we condition our mind and how we prepare our minds. And
Yeah.
the example that we used was the example of Roger Bannister. Now, Roger Bannister used to run, um, the mile, right? And up to the time when he was running, no one ever broke the 4 minute mile, right? And it was like unheard of. Nobody, people just felt, well, this could not be done. It just wasn't possible until he did a sub 4 minute mile. Interestingly, the very day he did it, someone else did it. And after that, thousands of persons did it. So it tells you that we make our own reality, you know? So when it comes to happiness, all right, we determine our happiness. Happiness is certainly a choice. All right. So
Yeah.
I think it just that was a powerful start. Your mind is your world was a powerful place to start.
Yeah, definitely. Because even when I read it, immediately my mind went to all of the people in the world, entrepreneurs or not, who, whether because of their upbringing or life circumstances, really do believe that happiness can be found in the external. So we're driven, looking here and there and this and that experience, trying to find happiness, not realizing this core fact that happiness, true happiness, really begins on the inside. We get to determine it. And I love that what Mike Murdoch is doing in this chapter is really looking at how we could manage our mind to be able to experience those levels of happiness. Because he even continued, Roll, to talk about mind management being the key to success. And success here meaning how you experience and the energies that you carry. And my question that I was wondering, even as I read this, is when we think about mind management as a key to success, it brings us back now to ask, how do we define success? Roll, how do you define success?
For me, success is being able to impact the causes that are important to me and spend time with the people that are important to me. Those two, that's essentially how I defined it. So I have to have that balance. I can't only be impacting causes and not able to be with the persons that are important to me, or vice versa. I need to have that balance, and that for me is success. And in that way, I mean, I achieve success every day. It's not just an end. Yeah.
Yeah, even as you think of that, though, I'm putting it together with how I look at success and I tend to view success from a perspective of seasons as well, because I'm imagining someone listening and they're comparing impact the causes, impact a lot, impact a little. So how do I know if I'm truly successful? But I think if sometimes we look even at our seasons and our spaces of growth, we get to then define or redefine success, because it's like an entrepreneur who has opened their business for 3 years. You can't expect realistically to want to experience the same thing as someone who has been running their business for the last 30 years. You're in two completely different spaces. So I think even two, sometimes we have to look at success in the space that we're in or in the season that we're in, and then build expectations to be able to say, this is how I know I'm on the right path, I'm doing well, I'm fulfilling whether impact or purpose, whatever word that we want to use. We're really maximizing the space of vision and the manifestation of that vision for the season. Now, even as
Yes,
my brother,
certainly. It's,
yes,
yes, certainly, as we started off with the whole idea of happiness, and a big part of that,
yes,
you're right, is managing our expectations. And we manage our expectations in context, all right, based upon what we're able to do with the resources that we have, with the stage where we are in development. So I agree totally with that. Yeah.
yeah. Even as we went down, Mikey continued to talk about that, discerning that form of true definition of success, looking at it as that progressive achievement of the goal. But one of the things I wanted to bring up with you, Roel, is where later down he mentioned the importance of scheduling time with uncommon achievers as one of the ways for managing your mind. And what I wanted to ask you, when we begin to think about scheduling time with uncommon achievers, do you have a recommendation for how often people should be trying to make these sorts of connections?
I can't say that there's any rule of thumb, you understand? Rule of thumb, that, I mean, each person, you mentioned the importance of life stage. So really depending on the stage of your life and your particular situation, you come up with what might make sense. But I think whatever you decide, you should have some kind of regularity to it. So if you're saying monthly, or if you're saying weekly, or if you're saying annually, or whatever time frame that you come up with. And again, if you are in a space where things are tight and you really need that type of input, then you find you may meet more regularly. So I don't know that there's a particular schedule, I would say, that persons would need, but you have to measure that based upon your particular situation, that you are going through.
Yeah, and also, I think it's important to remind persons that yes, we are going through this COVID experience, but the COVID experience and restrictions associated with it is not a reason to not connect. Yes, we may be limited or want to choose to limit how we physically interact with others, but physical interaction isn't the only way we can connect, because sometimes connecting might be as simple as a
Of
phone
course.
call in the morning, in the afternoon, whatever. It might be as simple as a WhatsApp message to say, hey, how are you? Or, I was thinking about this. Do you have any thoughts to share? It might be a virtual meeting. Even today I was reading about, oh my gosh, virtual coffee meetings. I forgot the name, but I was reading about it today. And where, usually you would say, hey, let's have coffee. So what a lot of
Yes,
people are
yes,
doing now
yes.
is they're having virtual coffee, and this is a whole movement happening online that I was reading about, where people are having virtual coffee. So we're not able to maybe go to Starbucks or our coffee shop or whatever, but we're saying let's have virtual coffee, and I mean, I'm guessing they may be showing up everybody with their cup of coffee in their house or their latte or
Yes,
smoothie,
yes,
and you
yes.
and you chit chat and you make it work. Let's have virtual coffee. I was loving that. I thought how ingenious to say, listen, we can't do this, but we need to connect. Let's find another way. So, Ron, I must ask you, in the midst of the pandemic, have you revamped the way you connect? And what are some examples of ways you connect with your circle of uncommon achievers?
Well, I like everyone else have had to pivot. You can't just do things the same way. There's a risk to life. There's a risk to health. So you have to come up. And again, it speaks to the power of the mind. That whatever
Yeah.
situation we find ourselves in, if you maintain a positive mentality, you're going to take that
Yes.
resource, right, which is right now online, and make it work for you. So the most
Yeah.
recent example I think I had was a birthday party, and which was strange because for us, what a birthday party is, connecting, and it turned out to be probably one of the best moments. This group of us, and this involved people across continents. You understand? And we connected, and we had a real down to earth Trini Lime, and we had a
Right.
ball, and we had a toast. Everyone gave a toast, so we really had a good time. So that barrier is being erased. Right now they're even talking about virtual carnival. You understand? So that
Yes, I
that
was
barrier is
reading.
is slowly is being erased, right? Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
just
I'm loving
we can do
it.
anything. You understand? Anything is possible,
I'm
right?
definitely loving it because I tell you, Christmas is coming, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, because Christmas time is a nice networking time where for
Time to
the
connect.
uncommon achievers that I'm connected with, it allows us outside of traditional business mode to say, hey, let's spend some time together. And you have a good time, you eat, you drink, you share ideas, move forward. You never know what comes out of these conversations. And I'm sitting here thinking, wow, how do you find a virtual version of this and make it happen, over the holidays? Because I think it definitely still is necessary. We need to be connected. We need to have that synergy and flow, and communication is such a key part of that. It's about being creative. It starts with that brainstorming process. It starts in the mind, most definitely. But in overall, even as Mike Muir continued on in the chapter, one of the things he also mentioned is that a key is to be able to identify your dominant distinction from others and build your thought life around it. And as I was reading it, it occurred to me that there might be so many people that are probably struggling, as simple as it is, to be able to identify their dominant distinction. What are the ways or the thought processes, I'm asking you, that a person can go through to help them identify their dominant distinction? Can you share on that?
I I would think that it must begin with the things that resonate with you. You know, the things that resonate with you, you put more time into it, you put more effort into it, you put more energy into it. So I think the things that you naturally like, the things that you naturally like to do, the places that you naturally like to be, the things you naturally like to do, I think is the first start um, of finding that distinction. I think the next step would be the things that you recognize you're also good at. And it sort of follows, all right? Those things that you're passionate about, you tend to do it well. So how people tend to recognize you for it. People tend to say, hey, you're really good at that, or like you're really good at that particular thing. It's like me, I cook from time to time, and I won't say it's a dominant distinction that I have. I can tell you, I remember teaching a brother of mine how to cook. And in the first instance, his food tasted better than mine. So clearly he had a distinction, right? So I guess the point I'm making is that people, you're going to get feedback. People are going to say, listen, you do this very well. You sing very well. You somehow anytime you're planting, your plants come out, so you have a green thumb, people are going to give you recommendations and recommend you and so forth. Um, the other part of that also has to do with the value eventually that you bring. So eventually you're going to take that skill, that talent that you have passion for, and create impact. And it's amazing what it does. I always remember, I have a brother, one of my brothers, all right? His academic training is in languages and so forth, but he can play the keyboard very well, right? Wasn't initially classically trained, but would you believe that keyboard has taken him all over the world, all right,
Right.
rather than his academic training. So that's an example of how you can find that distinction. It begins to, the Bible says your gifts make room for you. These things that are dominant in your life begins to create opportunities and build connections and create value and very well earn a living out of it. So all these things, these are the ways I think you can find that dominant distinction.
As I listened to you roll, the word immediately that came to mind when you started talking there is instinct. I started thinking about instinct and paying attention to your instinct. And the question in my mind that I was thinking would make a really great prompt question is, what do I have a unique view concerning? Because we all can operate in a space, but then for some reason I just see it differently. For some reason you just see it differently, and that causes you to have that dominant difference, because something in this you see differently,
Yes.
you understand differently, or you do differently. Your instinct takes you there, so like you have a thing for impact. It's just your thing. That is your space. You love it. You're motivated by it. You see it in a unique way. You're passionate about it. That's your dominant space. I have a thing about the excellence. Everything I do is always excellence, excellence, and it frames how I do everything that I do, and it motivates me to create learning experiences for others, because I am driven by my desire to support people in their own development in excellence. The same way you're driven to help people to be developed in their ability to make impact. It's because we have a unique view. And I'm thinking for those who are probably questioning their dominant traits, when they start to look at instinct, that's a good place. What do I see differently, know differently, understand differently? It's just different. I see you smiling, Roll. Tell me, why are you smiling?
I'm smiling because, we're talking about the uncommon dream. And Mike Murdoch in this chapter is talking about the power of the mind. And when you begin to go along the path of the uncommon dream, it begins to be particularly challenging, because that instinct can sometimes run counterculture. In other words, it's different to what people would
Yes,
normally do.
it
And
usually
we live in a
does.
world that it seeks, right, and that's where the challenge is. So learning to trust your own instinct, learning to
Yeah.
trust your own ideas and put them out there, it's a step of faith, that you have to say, okay, this is what I'm thinking, I think this is important, I think this is valuable, let me put it out there. And that could be tough. And
It
this is
is
where
tough.
that mind, having that mindset is important, and
Yeah.
begin to believe in yourself. And that's why being connected to the right people, having the right people around you. You spoke earlier about connecting with achievers is important, because these are other persons who are like you, and they have been forging their own pathway. All right, or as a colleague of mine would say, creating their own narrative and not succumbing to what people say they should be, or they should do, or they should think. So it's important to have the right mindset to accomplish that.
Definitely, yes. And even I would say for people who, let's say you're tuning in, you're listening to it, but you're still not there, you still don't feel like you could figure it out, then another thing I would say, Roll, is if you feel challenged in finding that, or being able to think, what am I good at, to have a unique view about, because it is possible to have a blind spotted because it's your normal, and you don't realize it's your normal. It made me like, for example, I was doing a digital program with someone about a month ago. We're doing a recording, And I asked her to talk about one thing. In my mind, we were talking about art as a tool for communication. So in my mind, I had my own idea of how the conversation would go. We tape it. And we got into this conversation. When I tell you, she took this to a whole other space. And when we were finished, I said, woman, wow. And she's like, what? And
Yes.
I'm like, I've never heard that before.
Yes.
And she's like,
Yes.
really?
Yes.
I'm like, no, like you're the only
Yes.
person I
Yes.
have ever heard express it like that. And she, in her head, this normally, everybody understand it. So, and I'm like, no, no,
Yes.
ma'am. Everyone does not see it like that. And this
Yes.
is why
Yes.
our voices are so important. And I think, I really believe it's so important for us to give ourselves permission to share our voice. And of course, I don't mean our literal actual voice, but share our views, share our passion, because the world needs what we have. And if you're not sure what that dominant thing is, I really think persons can tune in to, as you were sharing, role, to the views of others. Because I remember,
Yes.
so go ahead. So go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. I think you should finish. Complete your thought.
No problem. I was saying, I remember some years ago, I was coordinating for some professional development training. I think we were doing practical accounting. And in coordinating for this was, I think, twice a week from 6 to 8 p.m. And most of the participants were mothers. And babysitting was a challenge. And so what I would do is I would have one of the daycare persons stay back and work late that night. So the women brought their children and their children had daycare while they sat in class. But there was one mommy, she had like a 3-month old, but she wanted to do the course. So I borrowed, because we had a daycare as well, I borrowed one of the cribs from the daycare. And so she would put the crib next to her and she would have her baby like this in one hand and writing notes with the other hand while class is going on. And someone in the class said to
Wow.
me, wow, your impact on women and mothers is so XYZ. Your target towards women and mothers is such. I was like, I don't target women and mothers. And the person is like telling me, yeah. And I'm like, no, I don't. And they say, Alina, look at what you do. And
Mhm.
in my mind, don't everybody do this? If this is what
Yes. Yes.
if this is
Yes.
what your customer needs in order to attend the class, then you put it in place. In my mind, it was the most normal thing. But because I took a minute to listen to somebody who was external to show me who I was and what I was doing, it made it so much easier for me to step into that and walk in it and live it out, where a lot of times I'm able to provide services and support to women and mothers because it's instinctive, not because I set out and I say I want to do it, but it took somebody mirroring it to me. And so I'm just really encouraging persons, if sometimes you feel like you're struggling figuring it out, trust to be in conversations with people who have your best interests at heart, and chat with them, because they may be able to mirror to you what is instinctive but you're blind to seeing because it's your normal. But Roll, what were you going to say a moment ago?
Well, I think you kind of captured what I was going to say, but what I wanted to add, and it's something that Mike Murdoch said here about being teachable. All right.
Yes.
And I think it's one of the things that's important as you go along that journey of discovering your talent and building the mindset that you require to have to take the leap of faith, to put yourself out there, to put your ideas, to put your thoughts, to put your products, to put your solutions. There's going to be a response. People are going to respond. All right. And sometimes that's a safeguard because we can get caught up in our own selves sometimes and think that only what we're doing is important and only the way we're doing it is important, and stop listening to the customer or stop listening to the client. So I think remaining teachable is also important because as you put yourself out there, the client's response will help you fine tune and improve your offering. whether we're talking business or we're talking relationship.
Yeah.
Listen to the other person, and they're going to give you cues and hints as to how you can improve what you're doing. And it's a tragedy. You know, Miles Monroe had a saying that the graveyard or the cemetery is one of the richest
Yes.
places, because
Yeah.
people keep that deposit. We all have this God-given deposit, this talent, this skill that the earth is waiting on. We are all waiting on, but some people hide it because of fear, of intimidation. They just don't have that faith to put themselves out there, and it's important to do so.
Yes, definitely. And Roll, I want to ask you about one more thing in this conversation. As I was reading, I have many deep moments throughout the book, but I had a deep, deep moment in this chapter. And my deep moment was where Mike Murdoch said that we ought to unwrap our present moments and savor the divine difference that we discern in them. Because in every moment, we want to feel in our future is already in your present. And for those who are listening but maybe didn't read the book, I want to say that again. Mike Murdoch wrote, unwrap your present moments and savor the divine difference that you discern in them. Because every moment you want to feel in your future is already in your present. Listen, I took a moment, I breathed it in, I read it about I'm telling you, I read it about three
Yes,
times
yes,
and I
yes.
said, yes, I'm aligned and I fully believe this. But it was so refreshing to see the
Hmm.
words that he used to put it. What were your thoughts when you read that, Ron?
Yeah, I think it reminded me of the importance of enjoying the journey. I think some people are caught up too much with what they think should happen in the future and what the future holds, or caught up too much in what the past has, the pain of the past, the anxiety of the past, the anguish of the past, and they're caught in this space. So I think learning to live the moment, to enjoy the moment, helps you to remain thankful for the times that you have, for the people that you have around you, for the life that God has given us, so that you could enjoy that space. And that's why he defined success the way he defined success. He defined it as a progressive realization of your goals and your dreams and ambitions. And you can only do that if you stay in the moment and you live the moment, right? And in fact, I know there's a whole study on that now where they talk about how to be present, how to
Yeah,
remain present every
yeah,
time. And you see that in family relationships, in relationships, parent-child relationship. Your child is there with you, you're doing homework, whatever it is you're doing, and you're in another space. You're not
yeah,
there present with each other. So I think it's certainly
yeah.
one of those keys to me of success and helping people to live a more balanced life, which is something else that Murdoch spoke about in his chapter. It helps us to become more balanced, striving for better.
Yeah, because even as you mentioned Miles Monroe, it reminds me of one of his teachings that says everything that you will ever need is already in you. Um, and I've really kept that.
Mm-hmm.
And for me personally, that keeps me
Mm-hmm.
motivated to desire to see the manifestation of greatness out of me at all times. Because if I am to believe that everything I will ever need is
Yes.
already inside of me, but I add my little flavor by saying it's there in seed form, then when I read this statement from Mike Murdoch and I look at it through the lens of that saying from Miles Monroe, it means to me as well, in addition to what you're saying about, being present, I pull from it too that when we unwrap the moments and savor the divine differences that we discern from in them, it tells me too that even in the present, we could sometimes find there is an activation of a thing that is connected to something great that is coming. But if we don't pay attention to it, we wouldn't live it out. We wouldn't step out in it. It's like if you're chatting with one of your colleagues and you're in the present, you're having a great time, but then that colleague says something and you connect with it and realize this is an amazing idea. We could do this as a project. If you weren't having that parallel between present time and future manifestations, you might have missed it. You kiki kaka, move on, and nothing came out of the conversation. And I think in a deeper way that could happen
Yes, yes,
in terms of our capacity as individuals. I believe we're born with capacity, and I believe as we grow as individuals, we develop capacity. And when I talk about capacity, not meaning a substitute for ability, but that depth of self to carry a vision. I believe we all have capacity, and it can be developed over time. That depth that allows us to carry greatness, to carry a vision. And if we make this parallel between in every present, in some, it don't have to be every, but in a present moment, there can be connection to a divine thing to come. It alerts us to tap into that capacity or to have the awareness that maybe I should be open to developing this capacity so we could walk out into that next train of greatness. So I tell you, I had a moment over that little thing. But overall,
yeah. It's
what
powerful. It's
on
powerful.
this chapter?
Yeah, could you say that again? I missed some of what you said.
Sure. I said, overall, even as we wrap up the convo, what were your views? What stood out to you the most in the chapter?
I think the point about I'm looking at it here, right? Cultivating a teachable spirit. I
Yeah.
think that jumped out more than anything else because I've learned for me personally to be a student of the moment, to be a student of the experience, and that helps me to unwrap the present moment. It
Yeah.
helps me to stay grounded in my experience,
Yeah.
whether it's failure or success by my eyes. All right, it
Yeah.
helps me to sit back and say, okay, this is the experience. What can I learn from this? What can I take forward? What can I enjoy from this experience? And in fact, for me, it almost serves as a kind of way to check, like to check where you're at. Joyce Myers, another writer and speaker and preacher, says her mandate is to help people enjoy everyday life. All right,
Yes.
and I feel that when you adopt a teachable spirit, it helps you to enjoy the experience. Realize you can learn. You can everyone can learn from every situation around you and really begin to enjoy. And I think once an individual stops enjoying their everyday life, it's a time for them to sit back and make an assessment of where they are. What is
Yeah.
really happening here? Am I really achieving the things that I want to achieve? All right.
Yeah.
So though that's the one that jumped out at me. Remain teachable in every moment, by every experience, and by everyone.
Yes. So even as we close, Roll, any closing words you want to leave with the our persons viewing?
Well, just to remind them of the importance of the mind, and a lot of our limitations have to do with how we see our sight or perception, and it isn't so much about what is around us. I share often about this particular pandemic that we're all going through and all the challenges that we're facing. But if we take the long view and we look back to previous times, we will see the tremendous things that came out of these challenging moments. So
Yeah.
again, saying is that if you have the right mindset, you will realize that wrapped up in this current circumstance is tremendous possibility and opportunity. And I want to encourage everyone to explore that and see it. Don't just look at it as a time to endure and a time to pass through. We can't wait till it finishes. There's something wrapped up in it to take you, your family, your business to another level. And if you get it, this is a pivot point that will take you to your goals and make you more successful.
Yeah, so this was a great conversation as always. So happy to have had you in, partnering with me to produce these book club conversations, a series 3 of the book club
It's been a
conversations.
pleasure.
Yeah, and to those who are viewing, thank
Yes.
you so much. We appreciate you joining in live. To those who would look on after, we trust that the conversation was as engaging and enlightening as it was for us. We continue on tomorrow because we have a couple more days to go. We wrap up on Sunday with a grand finale. So until then, keep reading, keep being
Yes.
open to being
Looking forward to it.
transformed. Yeah, and have a great night, everybody.
Bye.